Cemetery until the commemoration for Major General William Phillips, Royal Artillery, Kingdom of Great Britain. I'm Martha Atkinson. I'm the Director of Museums for Petersburg Preservation Task Force, and I thank you all for joining us this afternoon. In regards to this occasion, I began thinking about the over 300 years of history held in this church and cemetery. There are thousands of American soldiers buried here who fought in the American Revolution, the War of 1812, the Indian Wars, Mexican War, the war between the states, of course, the Spanish-American War, World Wars I and II, Korea, Vietnam, and Afghanistan. But I must say, the most unique soldier buried on these grounds has to be Major General William Phillips. At the time of his burial, these grounds were part of a British colony. Independence from England had not yet been won, and Phillips was buried far from his home, but not on foreign soil, at least not yet. And now I'd like to welcome Anna Schoenberger, Regent of the Francis Bland Randolph Chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution.
Thank you, Martha. In 1914, the Francis Bland Randolph Chapter of the National Society Daughters of the American Revolution erected a memorial in memory of Major General William Phillips. Now, you may be asking yourself, why would an organization dedicated to fighting for independence of this great nation honor a member of the opposing army? Well, let's think about that for just a moment. General Phillips, following the Battle of Petersburg, ordered his men to protect the people of Petersburg and Colonial Heights and to not harm their property. So we are very thankful for the protection that General Phillips gave to this community. General Phillips was described as a very kind man. He was the most pleasant, he was unselfish, and he was the most courteous man in the world. We are thankful to him for his protection of our beloved city.
Lorraine Minitry Smith, who will be singing, "O God, Our Help in Ages Past."
Oh Major General Phillips was one of very few British officers of his time who rose to general officer rank by his ability alone. In 1746, aged 15, he entered the military academy at Woolwich and then served in the Royal Artillery, where he had a distinguished career. His service at the Battle of Minden in 1759 consolidated his reputation as an excellent officer. He subsequently rose to be the commander of artillery at Woolwich and the Lieutenant Governor of Windsor Castle. He was also elected as a Member of Parliament. In 1775, when hostilities broke out in the American colonies, Phillips, then a Brigadier General, was sent to Canada to command all artillery in that province. Displaying the greatest courage and leadership, he was promoted to Major General in 1776 and assigned as Deputy Commander to Lieutenant General Burgoyne. After the disastrous Battle of Saratoga in 1777, Burgoyne was returned to Britain, whilst Phillips took command of the now surrendered Convention Army. During his captivity in Charlottesville, Virginia, Phillips worked tirelessly for the welfare of his men. Of note, he and fellow officers were frequent guests at Monticello, home of Thomas Jefferson, the Governor of Virginia. In 1780, Major General Phillips was exchanged for the American Major General Benjamin Lincoln. He returned to active duty, supporting Lieutenant General Lord Cornwallis's operations in North Carolina. His task was to destroy the American logistic lines through central Virginia. Phillips successfully accomplished this mission with the same diligence and resourcefulness that characterized his entire 35 years of service to the Crown. Tragically, 2 weeks after the culmination of this campaign, Phillips fell ill with a violent fever. He was forced to relinquish command to his deputy, Brigadier General Benedict Arnold. On the 13th of May, 1781, aged 50, Major General Phillips died at Bolingbroke, the Petersburg home of Mrs. Bolling. Later that night, he was buried in an unmarked grave somewhere in Blandford Churchyard, and he remains there to this day. Major General Phillips's ability gained him the highest regard from his contemporaries. Thomas Jefferson described him as the proudest man of the proudest nation on earth. Captain Ewald of the German Jaegers described him as worthy of commanding men. He drove everyone zealously to his duty, but he was the most pleasant, unselfish, and courteous man in the world. Moreover, to ensure the welfare of Petersburg in Chesterfield County, Phillips ordered that private property and those individuals who had not taken up arms were to be under the protection of the troops. Thus, he saved Petersburg from war's common devastation, following the battle fought here on the 25th of April, 1781. In 1914, the Francis Randolph chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution erected a cenotaph to his memory near the south door of Blandford Church. High praise indeed, but truly fitting given the subsequent reconciliation of our two great nations. Now, quite clearly, our nations have suffered some adversarial wars, conflicts over time. I think the philosophical and political differences between the nations were strained, and protests against taxation without representation led to the Boston Tea Party, and France coming over to ally themselves with America, bringing the Spanish with them, two of Britain's greatest foes over the years. And America was successful in defeating the British and gaining independence, with Great Britain recognising US sovereignty in 1783. So, hostilities over? Unfortunately not. The US later declared war against Great Britain in 1812 because Great Britain was seizing American ships who were trading with France, still our enemy at the time. Tit-for-tat battles either side of the Canadian border ensued. After the defeat of Napoleon in 1814, Great Britain strengthened their forces and fought their way into Washington, D.C., setting fire to the Capitol building and the White House. Later, a peace treaty was signed in December 1814. However, hostilities did not end until early 1815. We've come a long way since those days, and we've shared sacrifices during both world wars and many conflicts since. It's that bond of friendship, forged fighting alongside each other, which has made the great friendship that we now have between our two great countries.
Present arms. Shoulder your firelocks.
And in closing this afternoon, I too think I believe that we can be proud very much of the relationship the United States has with England. It certainly has changed over the last 242 years. And today we come together, not to promote war, but to protect and preserve peace. May the peace and goodwill between us continue. Thank you.